Good evening and welcome to Mountain Bears. I'm Aeson, and of course with tonight is the cubby that shakers the mostest. Techy Joe, how are you, darling?
I'm doing well. How are you this evening?
I'm working off my Gantt list at this moment.
Okay, good deal, good deal. Hey, Brenda. Oh,
Hello, Brenda. Hello, Shannon. Oh, they finally included the little handy thing, so now we can see what she's actually sending.
Yes. Well, we could before. It would be like hands waving.
Yeah.
I just always pictured it like jazz hands, but that's
yeah. You know, I don't know. I don't think Shannon would ever do jazz hands.
Jazz hands. I think Shannon would. I think Shannon would do jazz hands.
So how's y'all set Friday go on? Prep for the weekend?
Oh, how am I? Yeah.
No.
Oh, them. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
She would do double middle fingers. Okay.
That'll work.
Fair enough.
That would be a more appropriate greeting for this show.
Probably more appropriately jazz hands. Just saying. It was a wild time.
Uh-huh. It can be a wild time. All right, so where do you want to start?
Well, let's start with Lyft and Uber.
Oh, this is interesting because, they're a company that's quite interesting. Here we go.
All right, so Lyft and Uber say they will leave Minneapolis after city council forces them to pay drivers more. So Lyft and Uber said they will cease operations in Minneapolis after the city council voted Thursday to override a mayoral veto and require that ride-hailing services increase driver wages to the equivalent of the local minimum wage of $15.57 an hour. Lyft called the ordinance deeply flawed, saying in a statement that it supports a minimum earning standard for drivers, but not the one passed by the council. It should be done in an honest way that keeps the service affordable for riders, Lyft said. This ordinance makes our operations unsustainable, and as a result, we are shutting down operations in Minneapolis when the law takes effect on May 1st. Uber did not immediately respond to a request for comment, but news outlets reported that it issued a similar statement saying it would also stop service that day. Both companies promised to push for statewide legislation that would counter the Minneapolis ordinance, and State House Republicans proposed a bill Thursday that would preempt local regulations of ride-hailing services. The city council first passed the measure last week in a 9-4 vote, despite Mayor Jacob Frey's promise to veto it. The measure requires ride-hailing companies to pay drivers at least $1.40 per mile and 51 cents per minute for the time spent transporting a rider, or $5 a ride, whichever is greater, excluding tips. In the event of a multi-city trip, that only applies to the portion that takes place, within Minneapolis. Critics of the bill say costs will likely spike for everyone, including people with low incomes and people with disabilities who rely on ride-hailing services. Supporters say the services have relied on drivers who are often people of color and immigrants for cheap labor. Drivers are human beings with families and they deserve dignified minimum wages like all other workers, Jamal Osman, a council member who co-authored the policy, said in a statement. Quote, today's vote showed Uber, Lyft, and the mayor that the Minneapolis City Council will not allow the East African community or any community to be exploited for cheap labor, Osman said. The council chooses workers over corporate greed. Democratic Governor Tim Walz, who vetoed a bill last year that would have boosted pay for Uber and Lyft drivers, told the Associated Press on Wednesday that he was concerned because so many depend on those services, including disabled people. He said he believed the companies would pull the plug, and there's nothing to fill that gap. Walz added that he hopes the legislature will seek a compromise that both includes fair pay for drivers and dissuades the companies from leaving. Seattle and New York City have passed similar policies in recent years that increase wages for ride-hailing drivers, and Uber and Lyft still operate in those cities. Yeah. I'm kind of glad to see that Minneapolis has passed this.
Yes.
I have this moment though of like the mentality required here is that fundamentally you should work for free, and we're going to use people with disabilities to show what a horrible person you are. Like this is the puppy you're kicking. Are people with disabilities. You're going to screw them out of the ability to get where they're going.
Right.
And we're going to use that to justify paying you below local minimum wage. So that you can continue to provide services for those people. Oh, okay. Well, that's interesting. Cool. What?
What? That's the key point there is what. However, I looked at it and I kind of felt bad. But for a different demographic.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is the slave workers are making 35 cents a minute. An Uber Lyft driver will make 16 cents per minute higher. Plus that $1.51 per mile.
Yeah. Well, but those are actual expense based. Like averaging out the expenses for a vehicle, that mileage, it goes.
Yeah, but it's also more than what West Virginia currently pays anyone doing the paid transport.
Oh, yeah, by a lot.
Yeah.
Well, and that's its own fun process as well.
Right.
Because fundamentally, what their whole point was being made was that we were relying upon private industry, which, I mean, it's kind of an insulting point when you make it in full for them. We're relying in this Republican ideal on private industry to provide public services or failing to or choosing not to provide, one of the two, for people in our communities. And so supposedly the only way that these private industries can provide that service is by exploiting communities of color and the poor to go do the work for less than local minimum wage. Like, follow that bouncy ball. So more than likely then your Uber and Lyft driver doesn't live in Minneapolis. Because, like, you understand why locations have a local minimum wage. And it's because the cost of living in that area has already been recognized to cost more than federal minimum wage.
Right.
Like, you follow that? So they're they don't get paid till they pick you up, so they have to commute into Minneapolis to spend the day driving you around and driving everyone else around, and then they have to commute home because they can't even afford to live in Minneapolis based on what they're currently being paid.
Right.
Like, this is the level of dumb that this is.
Here's the level of that this is.
Okay.
I just piped in from my house to Invisible House's work per day. For everyday ride on Uber is $6.45. So $6.45, and let's say that he's not getting peak hours and getting off for another $6.45. $12.90. That's $1.90 more than he makes, roughly.
Yeah, that's how much it would cost him. Well, per hour,
right?
But it basically, like, and that's some of the nightmare of it, especially when you consider the communities they're pointing out that are relying on this, and that's assuming that they're not using this to go to work,
right?
Because if they are, many people in communities with disability are either living on disability,
right?
Which is again where they're trying to make this the kicked puppy,
right?
Like, whoa, we'll have to charge more,
right?
No, you won't. Not that much more.
No.
And quite frankly, if you're talking about someone with a disability having to rely on Uber daily, and especially in this, like, job market that just loves part-time, like, no, not going to make you full-time. They can never be full-time, not full-time.
Right.
When you're dealing with that,
right,
you have a problem there.
Right.
Is part-time likes doing a few hours daily.
Right.
Like a few hours a lot of times. And if you immediately are talking about like 4 to 5 hour shifts or 3 to 4 hour shifts, you subtract at least 1 hour, potentially more, because again, there are times in which people with disabilities who would more than likely be users of Uber and Lyft at the level of disability that this would normally occur at, they are paid a lower wage. So it becomes a thing of now you can't even, like, realistically, if you had to rely on Uber and Lyft just to go to work, in that situation, you already can't make it. Like, it would cost you all the hours that you're working in monies to go to the job. So stay at home. For others that are using the service, I'd say that if rates do go up, then yes, they'll probably try to consolidate more trips to take fewer trips.
Well, how many minutes do you think it takes to take Invisible to work?
If I weren't coming back here,
yeah, that's the ride.
4, 5.
So, in the math, we just figured out how much it would cost to transport invisible, currently at Uber rates.
Mm-hmm.
If we divide it up by the hourly wage, they make a whole $1.29 for that ride. That's what they're making right now.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to go to 260 or 258.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, Uber. Suffer you do.
Right. While the company makes a whole $4.28 off of 4 minutes of that person's time.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Or $5, whichever's more.
Right.
That's the other part of it.
Right.
Yeah, under current, it's a dollar. It's $1.29.
Right.
Again, I like this is the if we raise minimum wage, then we won't be able to afford Burger King anymore.
Right.
Or fast food. Name your fast food place. It never matters in this argument. Because there'll be $20 hamburgers. I don't mean to be rude, but bitch, you been to fucking Burger King or McDonald's recently? They're just about are.
Right.
And we still haven't raised minimum wage.
Well, we have raised minimum wage in the company because they can't get employees to work for $6.25 an hour anymore.
Well, $7.25. Can't do that anymore.
Right.
But no, but that's what I'm saying though is, but if you keep pace with that,
mm-hmm.
So let's see, that was what, 2000?
Oh, minimum wage hasn't been raised for a while.
I know. Okay, that was 2009. Excuse me.
Right.
Yeah, July 24th, minimum wage to and $7.25 effective 2009. Okay. So let's see. That has been 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, look, there's a Big Mac index.
Yay.
Uh-huh. All right. So we've got the Big Mac index for 2009. Okay, and it's unfortunately an image and it doesn't appear. Okay. All right, so 2010, we'll jump to the next year that there is one. In US dollars, a Big Mac cost you $3.73 in 2010, the year after this took effect. So minimum wage goes to $7.25 an hour. The Big Mac is at $3.73. Oh, they don't have a 20. Okay, well, I can look that up. 2024 cost of a Big Mac is $7.14. Oh, excuse me. 569. 569. Sorry, that was Norway I was reading.
All right.
So 569 is just the sandwich. 569.
And well, that's in California. This was 3 months ago. For the large meal, it's $14.08.
Well, yeah, that's for the entire meal.
Right.
What you would normally think of going to McDonald's for.
Right.
I mean, I'm not loving it.
Loving it.
But yet, 1 hour of working at the same restaurant will either not or just barely, depending upon where you live, pay for a meal. Process that out.
Yeah.
Like, effectively what McDonald's is saying is that it cost one person to eat $14 a meal. Like, process that out. But you can't pay workers enough to buy 3 meals a day per hour.
That's scary. Like, I hate to see their business model.
These workers are going to be part-time.
Right. But I hate to see their business model because I know standard range is 35% profit.
Oh, yeah, because that's the realities of this. This isn't just like it's obscene profit. Like,
right.
I'm curious if anyone's calculated the profitability. Oh, no, it turns out that was the rate in... Yeah, sorry, thank you. Good check, because I inadvertently, again, grabbed the 2010 year. So, yeah. Or grabbed a different... I don't know what's going on with the Big Mac Index. It's confusing. Oh, no, I got the right one. Anyway. But, yeah, profitability of a Big Mac. So 7 years ago, someone asked this question. And that was at $2.80, apparently. They make about $2. It cost 77 cents to make 7 years ago.
Right.
Is what the actual cost to make a Big Mac was. So let's assume that doubled.
Right.
And these are all the costs. So if that doubled, your Big Mac... I was hoping you'd grab a calculator. 0.77 times 2. $1.54.
Right.
Sorry, I can't on air and do too much math. It gets bad. So $1. Like, hell, I'll even be generous. I'll be generous. I'll multiply it by 2 again. 308.
Right.
Is what one sandwich costs.
Right.
What? It's a lot of profit.
Yeah.
We're just paying profit.
And what's interesting is during a call, their January call for Big Mac, the CEO of McDonald's told analysts on earnings call that the restaurant chain will focus on more affordability this year after the company took some heat for price increases that have gone unnoticed by customers. I think what you're going to see as we head into 2024 is probably more attention to what I would describe as affordability. The CEO, Chris, I'm not pronouncing his last name, said on the earnings call Monday, the company has taken critically for jacking up menu prices that turn off some customers. The New York Post reported in July that McDonald's at a Connecticut rest stop was charging $18 for a Big Mac combo meal.
It's a lot of money for a combo.
Right.
$18.
Right.
$18 for a combo meal.
Right.
Like, I'm sure the worker standing there making it is not making.
Right.
Like, that kind of money.
Right.
Like, if they're making 4 combo meals a day worth of money.
Right.
So, 18, what, it was 18 what now?
$18 for a combo.
All right. So times, let's say they're working 5 whole hours.
Right.
Yeah, they're not making $90 in a day.
Right.
Most likely. Like that. But again, the restaurant's charging.
Right.
And expects you to make enough that you can afford 3 $18 meals a day.
Right.
Because this isn't like, this is supposed to be a value brand. Okay.
Right.
This is my reminder. This is a value brand. Big Mac is kind of your pretty much, this is pretty decent value, used to be, for the buck meal.
Right.
They now say that an average meal, because this is what we're calling the Big Mac, is an average meal, should be $18. And so if you as an average human are supposed to consume 3 average meals a day, that's $54.
That's more than it costs us to rent this house in a day.
Yeah.
Because our budget for this house is $35.
Okay. But here's the rest of that story.
Right.
For the way this works in McDonald's head, or works out for the rest of us.
Right.
Okay, the U.S. has one of the lowest spending percentages of income.
Right.
Wonder why. At 31.2%.
Right.
So $54 a day, like assuming you eat nothing but Big Macs, or the equivalent in food thereof. This would be 1/3 of your budget. So you were supposed to be making $112 a day, or $162 a day. So, and then that's per day. That's $162 a day. So 30 days in a month. I don't know many fast food workers making $58,000 a year.
No.
So we, if we want to still continue that, well, it's a job, not a career concept. Bullshit. Don't you think a job? It's not a career. It's not a lifelong thing you should be doing. But if it's a job, and you think that someone should be spending $54 a day on food, should have that kind of budget, and that's supposed to be 1/3 of their spending. So that's $58,000 a year.
Right.
Is what they should be earning.
Right.
Which, we'll be kind, and I'll divide that back down for you. Is divide by 12, divide by 30, divide by 8, 8. That would be $20.25 an hour, which you would have to pay your worker per hour to be able to afford to eat your combo meal.
Right.
Today.
Right.
Like the math not mathing?
It ain't been mathing, honey. Like I don't know who their accountants are.
I mean, not, and sadly, $58,000 really isn't that much money anymore.
No. All right. So, what do you want to take on next?
Oh, well, let's stay with the Hill, and we'll go with Pentagon's flawed UFO report demands congressional action.
Oh, I think it demands more than congressional action.
Okay, well, on March 8th, the Department of Defense published the most significant report on UFOs in at least 2 generations, and congressionally mandated historical review of U.S. government involvement with unidentified anomalous phenomena, or UAP. Unfortunately, the report from the Pentagon's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office contains an array of striking omissions and one particularly egregious misrepresentation. The result is a misleading report, which, like so much government UFO related propaganda over 7 decades, tells the reader just to move on, nothing to see here. To start, it makes no mention of how the U.S. government's official investigation of UFOs began. In a landmark 1947 memo, Lieutenant General and future chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Nathan Twining, stated that UFOs are real and not visionary or fictitious. He also described their flight characteristics as including extreme rates of climb, maneuverability, and action, which must be considered evasive when sighted or contacted by friendly aircraft and radar. Nor does AARO's report mention the earliest surviving intelligent assessments of UFOs. A late 1948 analysis that found many UFO reports came from observers who, because of their technical background and experience, do not appear to be influenced by unfounded sensationalism, nor inclined to report explainable phenomena as new types of aerial devices. Citing reports from trained and experienced U.S. Weather Bureau personnel from early 1947, the omitted document noted multiple observations of strange metallic discs with a, quote, flat bottom and a round top. Note that these incidents predated by several months the widely publicized June 1947 incident that catalyzed the flying saucer era. Other incidents involve silver discs or balls and balls of fire that stalked World War II air crews over the European and Pacific theaters. The Associated Press, Reuters, New York Times, Newsweek, Stars and Stripes, and the now defunct International News Service referred contemporaneously to mysterious silver-colored spheres and silvered balls which float in the air. Although admitted by AARO, all of this historical background remains significant because to this day, images and videos continue to emerge of objects fitting similar descriptions. In fact, AARO's ex-director openly stated as much during a May 2023 NASA presentation on UAP that U.S. military personnel are observing metallic orbs all over the world, making very interesting apparent maneuvers. Moreover, AARO has not provided a plausible explanation for naval aviators' more recent encounters, including one harrowing near collision with spherical objects exhibiting extraordinary flight characteristics. Worst of all, AARO's review misrepresents the most exhaustive, comprehensive historical analysis of UFO incidents conducted on behalf of the Air Force by the Battelle Memorial Institute in the early 1950s. According to AARO, the resulting report found that all cases that had enough data were resolved and explainable. But this is not what Battelle's analysis found at all, and AARO's misrepresentation of its conclusions speaks volumes. According to the Battelle analysis, as the quality of UFO reports improved, so too did the number with unknown explanations. Of the UFO cases considered excellent and with sufficient data to draw a conclusion, 33% were categorized as having unknown origin. Lastly, AARO states that it found no empirical evidence that the U.S. government and private companies have been reverse engineering extraterrestrial technology. But the report's categorical denials, alongside recent commentary from AARO's former director, place the agency in an awkward position. Christopher Mellon, the Pentagon's former top civilian intelligence officer, intelligence official, recently stated that key UAP whistleblowers did not trust AARO and went instead to Congress, or the Inspector General of the intelligence community. AARO appears to have concluded or conducted little investigation beyond superficial interviews, whereas the intelligence community Inspector General is a law enforcement official with formal investigative authorities. The result is a remarkable disconnect between AARO's report and what members of Congress revealed after the Inspector General briefed them in January. Following the classified briefing of a bipartisan group of 16 members, 5 were quoted saying they found UAP whistleblower David Gersh or his allegations to be credible, legit, or to have merit. Excuse me, we had a page refresh. Oh, that's annoying.
Several members noted that the briefing gave them insight on specific locations and private defense contractors, seemingly aligning with Gersh's claims. Such reactions, intended with the Inspector General's ongoing 2-year investigation of Gersh's complaints, seem incongruent with AARO's conclusions. The Inspector General found that Gersh's allegation of information was inappropriately concluded by Congress to be credible and urgent. Senator Marock, Republican Florida, Vice Chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee, has since corroborated these findings.
All right, so yeah, and that was concealed from Congress.
Right.
Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, Democrat in New York, along with a bipartisan group of 5 other senators, sponsored extraordinary legislation largely mirroring Gersh's shocking allegations. In extraordinary comments on the Senate floor, Schumer stated that according to multiple credible sources, elements of the U.S. government have been withholding UFO-related information from Congress illegally. Despite AARO's former director repeatedly characterizing allegations of illicit UFO retrieval and reverse engineering efforts as baseless, the principal co-sponsor of Schumer's UAP Disclosure Act, Senator Mike Rounds, indicated last week that the Senate will proceed with the legislation. In short, there seems to be a classic conflict of interest in the executive branch investigating itself. Congress, a co-equal branch of government, does not suffer from this, and so in the wake of AARO's flawed report, a congressional select UAP committee, like the one requested by Representative Eric Burlison, should step forward to separate fact from fiction. That's quite the article.
It is, but it's a glaring article. What's even worse is we have had, I believe the last count I had was 12 instances of unidentified flying objects coming into the U.S. That was picked up on NATO. Not NATO, NORAD.
NORAD.
Yeah.
Okay.
What the hell? Oh, they don't exist. We don't know what NATO's looking at. We just don't see it. Do you see it? No, we don't see it.
Well, again, NORAD. We're not sure what NORAD sees. Well, maybe it's Santa Claus in July. You know, whatever. Like is it December 25th? Because that's the only time NORAD might see something that isn't ordinarily there.
Right.
So yeah, that's quite the interesting step out they have gone with that report.
But it's the same BS.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's at a time in which it's like, I understand that government is normal.
Right.
And maybe fundamentally the way they've functioned.
Mm-hmm.
And the community has functioned.
Right.
But at this point,
right.
Like it does yourself no favors.
Right.
Like just
you know, as of last month, the
what
most recent was shut down.
Do I now?
UFOs, airborne objects. The U.S. had shot down 4 of them recently.
Oh, but they don't exist according to the report. There's no credible sources for that.
Right.
according to this report. And yeah, that's kind of where this article is going about the report.
Right.
Is there's a lot of inconsistency with what we do know.
Mm-hmm.
Let me take a pause here. I don't necessarily think that, like, oh, the lizard people are living among us, and I'm not there. I'm not convinced of that.
I think we are the lizard people.
Well, but you know what I mean. Like, I don't feel like there's I don't feel like this is Men in Black and there's tons of alien species just living all across the United States.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna struggle to convince me of that one.
Mm-hmm.
But I find it rather odd.
Mm-hmm.
And potentially highly likely that given this much time,
Mm-hmm.
I could see an ancient civilization unfortunately dying off in a spaceship that eventually collides with us.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, that could potentially happen. It would basically be an archaeological dig at that point, in a big metal disc. But
Yeah.
some other civilization set out across the stars and oopsies,
Right.
ran out of gas, everyone died, and bonk,
Right.
smacked into a planet. That doesn't seem all that, that they may have just been investigating because, wow, really? Sound?
Right. By the way, hello aliens. If you hear this broadcast, we like you here.
Feel free to like, share, and subscribe if you're watching.
Yes.
No, I mean that seriously. Please like, share, and subscribe.
And comment.
Especially if you're extraterrestrial.
Right.
Hi.
Right. So, do we want to take on St. Patty's or the Supreme Court?
Oh. Well, it's Friday. Let's take St. Patrick's.
All right.
So St. Patrick was probably gay and had a thing for twinks. Okay. St. Patrick's Day is just around the corner, which means that queers everywhere will be doing the same thing they do every other day of the year. St. Patrick's Day has never been a very gay holiday, unlike Halloween or Oscar Sunday, plus queers have had their fair share of drama around the day, with organizers of the New York and Boston St. Patrick's Day parades historically mistreating our people. That said, you might have something to wave in those organizers' faces this year. According to Brian Lacey, whose 2015 book, Terrible Queer Creatures, explores Irish gay history, St. Patrick was an inveterate lover of boys. Oh, I don't like the way this article's going. History sucks. In the book, Lacey recounts an incident where St. Patrick doted upon the son of a man he had just converted to Christianity. No doubt all the work of summoning God and promising eternal paradise must have won Patrick out. Daddy needed a support twink. But that's not all. Patrick also gave the support twink a name, disregarding the fact that you're not supposed to name them. That's how you get attached. The name was kind of cute. Benigus, Beninus, like the tumor. Beninus. Patrick and Beninus then became lifelong companions. Patrick even baptized him and made him the next bishop of Armagh, an illustrious position that probably meant something at the time. Of course, that's all just the secondhand account of a 7th century cleric named Tierchin, so take that with a grain of tasty red balloons. However, there is also not insignificant fact that Patrick was brought to Ireland as a Roman slave, and we all know what that means. Of course, he famously escaped Ireland and only returned later to evangelize it, leading some to wonder how he got back. a well-placed boyfriend, a buttload of money that he already had, since he was most likely just an average guy who originally escaped Ireland to avoid a boring job as a tax collector? Guess we'll never know. In any case, the whole book by Lacey, which is appropriately inspired by a James Joyce quote, is worth a read. Notably, it paints a portrait of an erstwhile Ireland that very well could have been amenable to St. Patrick's boy cruising. For instance, in the Gaelic era, which lasted from prehistoric times to the 17th century, bards and poets freely gave themselves to handsome princes. Only later, after Catholicism took over the nation, did Irish people become so hostile to queer Irish folk like Oscar Wilde and Roger Casement. Even in 2009, a planned statue of Wilde in Worthing, Ireland, the town where he wrote The Importance of Being Earnest, incited vehement opposition. Patrick also wasn't the only rumored gay saint. There's also Saint Sebastian, a 3rd century Christian martyr who has become something of a queer icon in the past century. Sebastian, who served as a Roman soldier under a pagan emperor, Diocletian, found himself sentenced to death by arrows for daring to be Christian. However, Sebastian's apparent sadomasochistic pleasure as he got pierced with multiple arrows, combined with his 8-pack and chiseled biceps, caused him to become a sex symbol among queer Renaissance men who later painted him. There was just something about his slightly parted lips and Sephora-friendly mug that made gay painters go, huh? In any case, there's no shortage of queer myths surrounding saints in the long history of the Catholic Church, and plus, everything we know and love about St. Patrick is based on hearsay anyway. The snakes thing, a lie. So what's wrong with engaging in a bit of myth making of our own? This year, if anyone runs their mouth about gays in the St. Patrick's Day parade and how that's destroying the fabric of society, then just remind them of the queerness of the holiday they're celebrating. After all, it's not just about St. Patrick and the benign tumor that he loved. It's also about indiscriminately kissing people just because of something their shirt says, which is also how I described an average summer on Fire Island. So go out and get your green on. Damn it, Queerty, you really had me going for a second.
Right.
Did Onion lose a writer?
No.
Because I know where they work now.
Actually, the book with Lacey is actually quite good. I've read it. It's quite interesting looking to some of the myths and going, how does that work?
Oh, apparently we're glitching. We were talking about aliens.
Yeah, talking about aliens again. We're inviting.
Glitchy.
Yep.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, but no. It's, a lot of this is myth. But there's been a lot done to try to tease the gay out of the history.
Yes.
In terms of creating queer history.
Right.
And understanding history from a queer lens, and not just assuming that, no, everyone was straight. They're also white and Christian, but it's very important. All of them were straight.
Mm-hmm.
Which in some communities actually is a bigger problem.
Right.
So I mean,
well, I find it funny that we're applying a word that did not become a thing till 1868 to a time in history pre-1868. Before then,
and then there's the but the most important aspect of it is, one, would they, if they knew the word, would they use it to describe themselves? Probably not.
Right.
Would it really have any importance in their society? Probably not. Would it just be a thing that may occur that is like whatever, and doesn't really have any deep meaning attached?
Right.
possibly, very likely. Like, we don't know.
Right.
This was unfortunately, like, queer history gets wonky.
Okay.
Because for you to have queer history, you have to have at least a very strong queer community.
Right.
Without a queer community, you don't have queer history. And especially not when it's written by straight people who are like, let's not talk about.
Well, that, or even if it was even a thing, like it was not a notable thing.
Right. And that's the other part of it.
Yeah.
Is if the behavior is not notable enough to form a community around,
Right.
like if the behavior, if the action, if the belief, if the, whatever you want to throw there,
Right.
doesn't form a community, then typically
Right.
it's not a thing. No one had a problem.
Right.
No one cared.
Exactly.
I'm curious.
Okay. I mean, like we talked in last week's show about the Hadrian's Wall, there was no breaking news that the emperor had 4 lovers. All right, while you research that, let me take a break and get the kids in.
Okay.
Are you ready for an enchanting journey of self-discovery and empowerment? Dive into the mystical world of Wicca with our courses guided by Lord Aeson Knight. Unveil Wicca's secrets, explore fundamental principles, and delve into essential topics like deity relationships and the purpose of rituals. Aeson Knight, a third-degree high priest, shares his wisdom through life coaching lessons, guiding you towards a brighter future. Step into the inner circle of enlightenment. Enroll today to embark on a journey toward a more empowered you. Click the link to take your first step into the magical circle.
Ready to join the Psychic Coffee Shop Network? By becoming our patron, you'll unlock exclusive content from Aeson Knight, host of the Psychic Coffee Shop podcast and co-host of the Mountain Bears podcast, alongside the tech-savvy Techie Joe. Choose from subscription options ranging from Tall $1, Grande $5, to Venti $10 per month, supporting us in covering production costs and beyond. Depending on your subscription level, enjoy discounts on private readings, free access to classes and special events, behind-the-scenes extras, and the chance to participate in station meetings. Plus, you'll get early access to new content and the opportunity to shape future topics. We'll acknowledge your support in the credits of our videos. Don't wait. Brew some magic and join us today as a valued member. Link in the show description. Aeson Knight, your gateway to a transformed life. In a world where anyone can claim to be a life coach, Aeson stands out as a true professional with the skills and qualifications to guide you on your journey to success. So why invest in a personal life coach? Let's explore the game-changing benefits Aeson brings to the table. Ever find it hard to stay committed to change on your own? Aeson's expertise ensures you stay on track. With him as your coach, that internal drive kicks in, motivating you to keep your promises and achieve your goals. Making a change is tough, but Aeson makes it 1,000 times easier. He's your unwavering support, guiding you through challenges, pushing you beyond your limits, and believing in you even when you doubt yourself. Friends are great, but they may not always want to see you succeed. Aeson, on the other hand, is dedicated solely to your success. He removes negativity and limiting beliefs, giving you the tailored support you need. Forget endless hours deciphering advice from books and videos. Aeson is your shortcut to effective change. He saves you time and money by offering personalized attention, guiding you toward the tools and lessons that will truly work for you. Ready for a better tomorrow? Book your discovery call with Aeson Knight now. Take the first step toward the life you've always dreamed of. Aeson Knight, your partner in transformation. Start your journey today.
Welcome back. Okay.
Yes.
Take it
All
on.
right. So I had a thought. It was a failed thought. We're moving on.
All right. Well, I actually want to address a thought.
Okay, sure.
Just right here.
Yeah, so plus in most history books, etc., the people's sexual preferences weren't mentioned. They are just assuming that people were straight. And that's true. That's true. Like that's the weirdo lens
Mm-hmm.
that we have of history. Is what we have of history is written by people who, one, as in, if you had a war, part of the spoils of war is you write the history.
Right.
And what happened and how, and who these people were, and how good, bad, or indifferent they were. But then you have the problem of, what do you write?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the problem of, and then what do I read as a reader looking at a history?
Mm-hmm.
And all of that gets influenced.
Well, it does. And then we have a problem of which I call the Victorian lens.
Okay.
This is where the Victorians basically done most of the research into history that we're currently operating on, but they did not touch taboo topics. Like there were phalluses found in many of the Egyptian tombs that the Victorians went and hid away and removed from the sites because how dare us discuss the sexuality of the Egyptian, of Egyptians.
Well, and that's the hands-on, like, archaeological side of it.
Right.
Is you have modern people with modern sensibilities deciding what is or isn't
right
up for discussion.
Right.
Instead of actually engaging with what's there. And going, okay, so the horny bastards.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like here we are. We're assuming they're horny because there's a lot of phalluses. And then figure it out from there. And granted, somewhere it gets tucked away and left as a note, and it didn't make it to publication.
Right.
But it did eventually.
Or get whitewashed over. Like in this Roman city that covered in volcano, a lot of the murals that were illustrious got literally lime washed over.
Yeah. So yeah, there's that.
Yeah.
But and sometimes those are points in history where we go, oh, if only we had salvaged then what was socially inappropriate,
right,
of what we knew about people before, we could easily be having a totally different conversation today.
Exactly.
Because we wouldn't be all standing around like, oh no, there were no gay leaders, there were no gay people, there was no gay marriage, this is an abomination, blah 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 blah, is what we get for an extended period of time in history.
Right.
All of a sudden to find out, oopsies.
Yeah.
You know how we said there were none.
That was until about 1930 that history books began getting changed. 1930 to 1948, 49, when we started the big have babies, populate America.
Yeah. Well, but there's also the points in history in which we didn't. We like the fucked up history we learn in school. That does fundamentally get into like.
Well, first of all, we don't get taught history in school. There's no way to teach 6 to 8,000 years worth of history in 45 minutes or an hour and a half, 9 months a year for 12 years.
In like a 1 hour span.
Yeah.
Like, understandably, you can't do all of human history. Like, that would hurt.
Right.
You'd spend a lot of time in school. I get that. But, like, what we take out of it sometimes is probably far more important than what we left in.
Right.
And so we end up many, many, many years later, thankfully with historians, who dig back through, because hi, I'm a historian and I study this period.
Right.
Or hi, I'm a historian, or the word's going to fail me today. Anthropologist.
Right.
Who studies different, communities, and I'm looking specifically at history for these people.
Right.
An understanding of how they evolved and moved and all this. That's and you know that thing you're saying over here? Interesting thing, it's not what you think it is.
Right.
Like, they are not lifelong companions and best friends.
Right.
Like, Jesus Christ, did you need a painting of them having sex?
Apparently.
To dot it out? Like, every other possible in their linguistic ability at the time.
Right.
Way it could have been said was said. But you chose to wash over that.
Right. And just Spencer's living together for more than 50 years.
Yeah. That, shared the same bed.
Right.
Like, dear Lord, how much more do you need?
Right.
Like,
and I find we put today's lens on history, and that's a lot of misreading of history.
It definitely can be. And it's not that, like, understanding the world today,
right,
and understanding the past,
right,
are unimportant. Or that, the fact that, yes, technically that would be this today. But it wasn't then.
Exactly.
Like, that's the missing component that people seem to not process. That didn't exist then.
Right.
Now, sometimes that does get into the muddy territory of, do we continue to celebrate, honor, and glorify history of situations that through today's perspective are abhorrent, and you wouldn't do that.
Right.
And that's a tough question to answer, because it depends upon what you mean.
Right.
And how that, honestly, in a lot of cases, it's how that works out.
Right.
At least for me, is how that works out. If you want to talk about the Civil War, and you want to talk about, great Southern leaders in the Civil War, and you want to, that's fine. That's not getting into the politics or the realities of what was going on.
Right.
We're talking military strategy. We're talking, okay. But the problem is, in a lot of instances, it begins to become a smokescreen.
Right.
And if it's being used as a smokescreen,
right.
And it's about, celebrating the political aspect of it, like with the Civil War, like, if you're a racist and the whole reason you have any interest in the Civil War is because it allows you to express and further, your racism.
Right.
No, that's not that. No, No, that's not the conversation we're having.
Right.
That's
But-
not about history.
Right. And
That's about
it's-
you.
And not only that, but that is such a short view of history. When you're looking at, and this is what I find them doing, and it drives me crazy, is they look at 4 years.
Yeah.
4 years. Not the span of 54 to 62 years. You know, it's like, I get really annoyed when they want to honor Jefferson Davis with a statue. If they want to honor Jefferson Davis with a statue, they need to honor him with a wine winery, with a winemaking vineyard. Because that's actually what he was known for at the time, was his wine.
Like, that was his thing. But and therein lies the problem, is that's not what it's about, but we're going to tiptoe around what it's about.
Right.
And that, in a lot of instances, is the problem.
Right.
Is that, it doesn't mean we can't talk about history. It doesn't mean that we can't, have respect or honor, like our ancestors, or be Southern and have respect for, a Southern general. The problem is when it switches over and it's like that, but that's not what that's about.
Right.
You don't care about that person.
Right.
Or, their contribution to history, or their contribution to military strategy, or what, you don't care about that.
No.
This is a, your connection to hatred. And at that point, no.
Right. But, and I've gotten into debates with them and going, oh, so when are you building a winery? And they'll look at me like I'm a bloodying idiot. I'm like,
it's like, you don't know anything about the person. You know about 4 years of their life. You've picked their name out of a hat.
Right.
Effectively.
Right.
You've picked their name out of a hat. And this isn't the conversation you want to have.
Right.
Because the conversation you really want to have is how you don't like these people.
Right. And what is her name? Give me a minute.
Okay. But no. But from the flip side, we also lose a lot of history. Some of it gets miscategorized and miscatalogued.
Right. And then you have like Marie Delphine McCarty, being right now, especially with like, we have the American Horror Stories and all that, being personalized. And I'm like, this person is a horrent. Like, if you look into her history, she is a horrent. Like, why?
Why would you? Well, but it's American Horror Story. Just saying. That. Like, these aren't always the bestest people that they pull out of history to base a show around. Right. Like, it's supposed to be bad. But
they're humanizing her.
Yeah. Well, which, I mean, I think no matter what you do, that's going to occur. Well, isn't it?
I don't know. Maybe we should have, choose someone, another character, especially for New Orleans. There were so many other avid characters to choose from.
But most of what ends up humanizing her is the fact that she is ripped through time and actually has to confront. Oh, it's a much different world now. And wait till you get into technology. And a lot of it is understanding that the past is dead.
Right.
And so it's a weird humanization though.
Right.
But it also is like, I don't inherently see it as a bad thing, because then there's the because like once you pull the historical figure into a dramatic future, you've already left the historical figure in the past.
Right.
Now you're dealing with an idea, and you can take that idea anywhere you want.
Right.
And there's places that it's gone. But I think it also, because of that, gives an opportunity to talk about things that we couldn't otherwise talk about. Like you need a device, and they make a great device.
Right.
About how much the world has changed, that these things would be problems.
Right.
Like, and it's cute and funny and comical in a sense to watch someone who's been dead for eon, to imagine them walking into the 21st century and like, oh, sweetheart.
Right.
I don't even know where to begin with the number of things wrong here.
Right.
That you have to quickly understand and make peace with and try to work around, get over,
right,
move beyond. So you do get an opportunity to see, okay, well, if you slam someone from them into the future, how quickly could they change and adapt and go, well, okay, that's not an appropriate thing to say anymore.
Right.
And like, I have to survive in this world.
Right.
And then it starts to question, well, how much of what you believe or thought or did, or like as a person in any given time, is a byproduct of your surroundings, and that's the best we knew.
Right.
Like, that's what I had.
Right. Well, again, it's
we didn't have Google in the 1800s.
Well, no, you didn't. You talk to, your information stands. But at the same time, it's like, can we, figure out a way to do this properly and without glorifying these people?
That's can be the downside. And sadly, I think sometimes that's the unfortunate takeaway, is that it does kind of neuter them historically.
Right.
It's like, oh, but she was so fucking funny in that television show that one time. And it's like,
right. But, that's what's occurring.
No.
We're repeating that behavior, and that's what's occurring with like Jefferson Davis, Stonewall Jackson. Like, you're focusing on 4 years of these men's lives, and it's like they had illustrious or complicated careers and followings. If you come up to me and say, "Oh, we got to keep the statue up," you better be able to tell me his favorite wine.
That would help.
For Jefferson Davis. Stonewall Jackson.
Because then you're talking about the person.
Yeah.
Like, talk to me about the person, not this period of history or this ideology of history. This point of conjecture.
Right.
Like, no. Whole person.
Right.
Whole person.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, whole human being.
Right.
If you can talk to me about them as a whole human being, right, and why you want to honor them,
right,
then that's great.
Right.
We'll talk about that.
Right.
But when it's like, no, you don't know anything about them.
Exactly.
You have no idea who you're honoring. You don't care who you're honoring.
Right.
Someone said to honor them, and that puts you in a club where you get to hate other people and call it your Southern roots or your whatever roots. Right. Nope, sorry, that's not what that is.
Right.
Like, that's cute and all, but that's not what that is.
Right. And that also, how he influences the rose wine out of Georgia that is now still being drunk down there. those are things we should be looking at.
That's a heritage.
Yeah,
We can talk about that.
right.
But if you don't know these things, you don't
Right.
have a heritage.
You don't know heritage.
That's not what heritage is. Hate isn't heritage.
Yeah.
Anger isn't heritage.
Right.
And I think that was the hardest thing to try to get to in that whole discussion about like removing Confederate monuments.
Right.
And that these are monuments of Confederacy.
Right.
These aren't monuments to men in the Confederacy.
Right.
Or women.
Right.
These are monuments to a singular idea.
Right.
That it's being declared as heritage you don't know anything about.
Well, right. And then, even going into the personage of it and him, literally writing the daughters or something of the Confederate and saying, please do not put a statue up of me. I don't want that there.
Well, and there's a really great connection to be made to like St. Patrick's Day. And I'll make it here.
Right.
It's amazing how many people are suddenly Irish.
Right.
Suddenly Irish for one day a year.
Right.
They will wear green. They will cut out shamrocks. They will do the whole thing.
Right.
Why? Because it's an excuse to party and drink.
Right.
That's it. That's the whole thing.
Right.
It's fun. They don't know anything about it. It's not their heritage.
Right.
It's a reason to party and drink. Cinco de Mayo, same thing.
Right.
Pick a holiday. There's so many.
Right.
It's not heritage. It's an excuse.
Right.
It's an excuse. So if anything, this St. Patrick's Day, try to learn something. Even if it really truly is not your heritage, like there's no way in hell it's your heritage.
Right.
Like 23andMe has confirmed it is not your heritage.
Yeah.
Even if that's the case and you still want the excuse to go drink, do me a favor, learn something.
Right.
Please just learn something.
Yeah.
Then you can go party and drink and share the fact you learned.
Right.
One thing, if everyone would learn a thing,
right,
that would be nice. Like, I'll appreciate you partying and drinking.
Right.
And then do that every year. Learn something.
Right.
And share the fact. And then have your green beer.
Right.
But anyhow. Also a reminder, green food coloring is hard to get out of everything.
Yes, so do not put it on your skin.
Be careful with that.
See, I was thinking this was because...
I don't know why that has to be the one specific food coloring that's such a nightmare, but it is. Like, yellow food coloring goes away, red food coloring it takes a little bit, but it'll go away. Green, though. Green. Ooh, green will stay with you forever. This is dangerous food coloring. All right, what you finding?
I was thinking the green beer is like 20th century Ireland repealed a law initiating everything pub included, shutting down the Aeson and marketing push for Budweiser in the 1980s, drowning beers in common ways of celebrating regardless. Okay, I was thinking that this was because there was an incident of Irish immigration or a problem with Irish immigration, so they gave them St. Paddy's Day.
No.
Yeah, there's some controversy there, but anyhow, moving on.
And there's the thing you learned. You can go have your green beer now. Share that with others.
No, I can't.
Okay. I'm just saying.
All right, moving on to would you be an asshole this weekend, Joe?
All right. Would I be the asshole this weekend? Would I be the asshole if I told my husband that I don't want to go on any trips or vacations with him anymore? My husband and I have been together for 7 years, but have been married for 2. Y'all see why he brings it up the way he did? I thought he was setting me up.
Uh-huh.
It's like, those are close numbers. And then, like, you're just, muddy in the water. Anyhow, we were supposed to go on our honeymoon cruise last summer, but we had to cancel due to me getting pregnant, and I would be due close to our embarkation date. I planned a mini honeymoon vacation for us this past weekend to San Antonio, Texas, on the Riverwalk in a really nice hotel due to us missing our cruise. We had gotten our income tax money and went ahead and scheduled the trip. When we get there, we were enjoying ourselves for the most part, with the exception of us not going out that much and really just staying in the hotel room. We did do something for every day that we were there, but we didn't get to do everything that I had planned for us to do. The thing is, he wanted to leave early because he was homesick and wanted to go back because he missed our kids. I told him no because I paid for us to stay the whole time, and I wanted to enjoy being able to sleep in and not have responsibilities for 4 days. He seemed to maliciously comply because the day we were supposed to check out, he woke us up at 5 a.m. to leave when checkout was at 11. I was pretty pissed and I let him know that. He apologized, but I recognized the pattern. He's done this before when we've traveled, even with our eldest kid. Every time we'd go somewhere, he wants to go home earlier than expected. When we got home, I told him about how upset I was about us leaving early and about how I want to enjoy my time away and not have to worry about anything else. He just apologized and kind of moved on. Would I be the asshole if I told him I'm not planning any more trips with him?
No. He can't set to a trip.
I don't think you're not the asshole. I think that's probably the worst way to tell him. Because the reality is y'all can't vacation together.
Right.
You want different things from a vacation, and they are mutually incompatible.
Right.
They are mutually exclusive things. I think he is more of a staycationer.
Right.
Stay at home, be around the kids, do some day trips, go home at the end of the day. Do light vacationing.
Right.
Take a week off, spend it with the kids, have fun.
Right.
You, on the other hand, are the type who very much wants to go and explore the world.
Right.
And you are more than happy and confident in your childcare, in your where you're going, where you're staying, and you have planned things to do,
Right.
and you want to go do them.
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't think it's an asshole idea to say, look, we really need to talk about doing separate vacations.
Right.
Or at least the opportunity for me to go do the vacationing I want to do.
Right.
And we can work out how to also ensure you get vacation time as well that isn't with me.
Right.
Because right now, the things I'm getting to do on our vacation are mostly decide that I want to do vacations with you.
Right.
I think that's more how that conversation has to sound.
Right. I think my viewpoint was I'm starting to have a biannual trip of girls' time. You're not included. And you're babysitting the kids. Have fun.
There you go. That's fair. No, I don't think a parent who doesn't want to take distance trips, like overnight, long, extended stays, I don't think they should inherently be saddled and punished with their children. As much as, no, we need to recognize that you need vacation time. I need vacation time. We need to find out what that looks like.
Right.
Because when we do it together, it doesn't look pretty.
Right.
I think that's more than fair. I think there's a lot of couples that most likely don't vacation together.
Right.
And I think it'll be okay.
Yeah. And I think it becomes into negotiation and like, I want to go skydiving. Joe has no interest in skydiving. He'd rather read a book. I'll meet you at the ground, dear.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
Or take a cab. Go enjoy. I'll watch the video.
Yeah.
I don't want to go.
Exactly.
I have no problem with planes. I just don't see the point in jumping out of a perfectly good one.
Well, depending on your definition of perfectly good, have you seen some of the planes flying around here? The other part of this, and
encourage you to jump.
I think works for us is we can go do our own things in multiple directions. Like he doesn't go to the gym with me. He doesn't go tanning with me because bacon.
Yeah, I would burn to a crisp.
Yes.
No tanning for me.
I go on long hikes. We're taking a camping vacation. He may come with me. He may not. He's not required to. And I think that's something couples really need to get past is this, oh, if I do it, he has to do it, or we can't do it together, or we can't do it. No.
No. I think it's great when in couples that through each other you do have the opportunity, and I think it's still important in all relationships, that you do have opportunities to go do things with someone else, and that, occasionally you may discover something you like because your partner drug you to an event. But I don't think it necessarily has to be this continual struggle.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it shouldn't be every vacation is this giant, like, drag him out of the house, force him to go do at least a few of the things you wanted to do, and then have a very angry car ride home, followed by an argument. That's not a vacation for either of you.
Right. All right, so the poll is up. Feel free to vote. If it is, you'd be an asshole for telling your mate you're not going on vacation or trips with them again.
There you go. All right, moving on to polyamory. What makes your cohabitating triad work? Inspired by the post the other day about triad sleeping arrangements, for those of you in cohabitating triads, how have you found success? We get so much discussion of triads gone awry, but what about when they work out? Our trio is somewhere between a triad and a V, which seems pretty common for ethically formed triads. Two of the dyads have been seriously dating for some time. One dyad is much older than the other, and the other of the dyads is more casual. We've been living together for about 3 months and loving it. And I would love to hear hear about ways others have made these arrangements work on a long time scale. Some things that are working for us in the earliest stages of cohabitating, about 3 months in. The three of us waited until the dyad relationships had crossed the 1-year mark before moving in together. We seem to be especially compatible as roommates. We share lots of space in our home, but took special attention to make sure everyone has their own areas as well. We have no end goal in mind. We're letting all of the relationships develop on their own terms. Thoughts? What do you think has made your triad work?
Google Calendar and departments.
Well, there you go. Good deal, good deal.
What's your thoughts? What makes this house work?
Well, Google Calendar is especially helpful. That shared calendaring and shared planning. I think we may have gone a little too deep in the beginning, but I think the calendar handles most of the important stuff.
Right.
I think we did try a little too hard to like, well, let's have a weekly family meeting and we're just gonna discuss everything. And it's like, okay, that wasn't really sustainable.
It took too long, and we had to create
Oh,
a
and
podcast.
yeah. Um, but no, I think you can get too far into the weeds of trying to like live by committee, and
Right.
that's not what this is.
Right.
Like, no, that's not how that works. I think the same is true for couples.
Right.
You can't vote on everything. Sometimes you just have to make a decision and your spouse bitch about it while you drive anyway.
Exactly.
Like there's just some things that it's not important enough for a meeting.
Right.
Like if we're changing laundry detergents, I don't want a memo.
Okay.
I'm just saying, I don't want a memo. It's
Well, you normally get a memo. Pick this up.
well, but you know what I mean.
Right.
Like in actuality, I don't want a memo. We don't need to vote on this in committee. We don't have to have a majority rules. And I think sometimes in the beginning it sounds like this decentralized organization concept is how, you know, this how polyamory is going to work best. It isn't.
No.
I think mostly because I don't think you ever find three people that are either that assertive or three people that are that unassertive.
Right.
That nothing will ever get done if we don't do a committee, or we'll kill each other if we don't form a committee.
Right.
I think most of the time it's going to be one assertive person with, and I say this in broad generalities, it's going to be one more assertive person and two people who are less assertive.
Right.
That are just kind of like, I don't care what laundry detergent we use. Do we have any?
Right.
Like that becomes the bigger part of the thing is if you go to the grocery store, they don't have our normal detergent. Our normal detergent has been discontinued. I don't need a phone call.
Right.
I don't need a memo. I do not need a text message. Pick up laundry detergent. It was on the list. Make it work.
Right.
Make it work.
Right.
That's it.
And I think that recognizing everyone's independence is highly important.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So let's wrap in this poll.
Yes. Where are we?
No, you're not the asshole for not wanting to vacation with your spouse.
Not the asshole.
And, you know, because one of the comments we got was, go on your own. Nope, leave him at home with the kids.
Yep.
He can start taking care of those kids exclusively. He'll enjoy his time away too.
You know, I don't know that one's true. Or necessarily as true as one thinks it is.
Right.
I firmly believe there are homebodies that have zero interest in travel.
Right.
And it doesn't mean that they never want to go anywhere alone ever. But it's like that itch gets scratched. Like, I'm going to run to Walmart.
Right.
Sit, stay, good wife and children.
Right.
And that's it. That's all he needs. Or I'm going to go to work.
Right.
I have all the time away from you I need.
Right.
I'm going to do X, Y, or Z.
Couples should have their own friends and their own interests. Individuals should have their own friends and their own interests, and they don't have to share them.
Yes. And I will say I still have issues with people who work together, ride together, live together. eat together,
Mm-hmm.
and don't seem to know how to function. But because what I normally end up seeing out of that is they don't normally know how to function
Right.
as like a unit,
Right.
as like an individual unit of the couple
Right.
or the poly or the whatever. It starts to get creepy. Okay. Like there's we're a loving couple and we do everything together.
Right.
And then there's the children of the corn.
Right.
And it's a slippery slope.
Very slippery, very slippery.
Like,
All right.
It goes creepy quick.
Yes. So just a reminder, there is no Psychic of the Plans this week. I am out of town. We will be out of range. We're assuming we're going to be out of range. We may not be. We may be. So that means I won't be taking appointments either.
Yeah.
Or answering emails either. Everything will be okay. I will be back Sunday. You cannot cause that much trouble in your own life.
Yeah. Let's hope not. Like, I don't want to throw down a gauntlet and pour gravy on it for someone because, it could get wonky in 24 hours.
Fine. I'll give you my 5 top pieces of advice. No, an axe does not go through a steel door. No, don't burn his shit until you get a permit. His cell phone is the same as his dirty underwear. You don't pick it up or move it. Leave them alone if they ain't talking. Let them think. Go find something for you to do because you're overanalyzing things too damn much.
Mm-hmm.
Replay that until it fixes your solution.
I would go more intelligently with sit down. Take several seats.
Yes.
This weekend, take several seats.
Right.
It'll be okay till Monday.
Right.
All right. So, of course, we want to thank Beverly Walker, Mika G, Kathy, Mary Winfield, Brenda, Shannon C, Shannon D, Lady Gwendolyn, Charles Shaw, Tracy Van, Caitlin Bell, and Devin. If you'd like to learn more about us, the show, or how you too can become a Patreon sponsor and receive all the wonderful benefits our baristas receive, please visit us at pcspnetwork.com.
Yes. And until then, good night, y'all.
Good night.